You know that feeling, right? When you've studied something, you know it inside and out, but then the moment comes to actually use that knowledge and you just freeze? Well, we're about to dive into a professor's pretty radical solution to that exact problem. Get this. He stopped teaching English so he could teach his students how to think. And by doing that, he actually unlocked their ability to finally speak it.
And this quote right here, it just gets straight to the heart of the frustration Professor Roberto Guzman was feeling. So he was teaching English at the University of Puerto Rico, and on paper, his students were killing it. I mean, acing their written tests. They knew the grammar, the syntax, all the rules. But the second he tried to have a simple, real conversation with them, they just freeze up.
So he gave this whole phenomenon a name. It's a memorable one, almost cartoonish, but it perfectly captures that frustrating gap between knowing a language and actually being able to use it. And here it is, the core of the problem, laid out plain and simple. On paper, his students were a total success. They had the mechanics down cold, but in a real conversation, total paralysis. See, this wasn't about not knowing enough. It was a huge gap, a chasm, really, between knowledge and confidence.
He called it Porky Pig Syndrome. You know, that stuttering, hesitating, that's all folks moment when all the pressure is on. And that's when Guzman realized, okay, piling on more and more grammar rules, that is not the answer. He had to try something completely different.
So what was his solution? What's the big idea? Well, instead of focusing on English at all, he decided to teach something way more fundamental, how to think critically. His goal, as he put it, was to install a fully functional, high-maintenance, portable BS detector in each of his students.
Okay, so this BS detector, it's basically built on 3 core parts. First, you've got to learn to ask the right questions. Second, you need to be able to spot when an argument is flawed. And third, and this is a big one, you have to embrace the idea that real, deep thinking means being willing to change your mind. All right, the first rule of the detector is actually pretty simple. Demand specifics. Guzman taught his students that people who really know what they're talking about, they can give you details. They can give you the who, what, where, when. But BS artists, as he calls them, they stay vague. And why is that? Because being specific means you're responsible for what you say. Vagueness is just a shield. It either hides that you don't know, or even worse, it's a way to manipulate people. The second piece of the puzzle is spotting what are called logical fallacies. Basically, just big mistakes in reasoning. A super common one, and you see this all the time in political debates, is the ad hominem attack. That's when instead of arguing against the idea, you just attack the person who's saying it. And Guzman points out, when someone starts getting personal and nasty, it's usually a pretty good sign they're losing the actual argument. And that brings us to the final part of the detector, moving into deeper thinking. This quote from George Bernard Shaw just nails it. You see, Guzman had to completely tear down this idea that you have to be right all the time. Real progress, whether it's for you as a person or for all of us as a society, it demands that you stay open to new information. And, crucially, that you have the courage to actually change your mind. So once this BS detector was installed, the whole vibe in the classroom just transformed. It became this space where ideas, not people, were the things being put on trial. They were totally separate from the person who said them.
And he laid down 2 simple but incredibly powerful ground rules. Rule number 1, you absolutely must respect the person. No personal attacks, period. Everyone has the right to their opinion. But rule number 2, ideas are not people. Ideas don't have rights. Any idea, even one that comes from the professor himself, is fair game to be questioned and challenged.
And this whole thing leads to a really profound question, doesn't it? Is questioning about idea just something we're allowed to do, or is it something more? Is it actually our responsibility?
Well, the answer is pretty sobering. A bad idea, when it's just left to grow without being checked, can be absolutely catastrophic. Guzman uses the incredibly stark example of Adolf Hitler. His hateful ideas were allowed to gain power because not enough people questioned them early enough. So speaking up against a bad idea, it's not just a right. Sometimes it's a moral obligation.
Okay, so at this point, the students are debating, they're thinking critically, they're questioning everything. But how does any of this get them back to the original goal of actually writing and speaking English? Well, this is where Guzman just completely flips the script on traditional teaching.
First off, he completely changed how they thought about mistakes. In his classroom, mistakes aren't failures. He calls them developmental errors. And they're not just okay, they are a necessary, totally essential part of learning anything new. You have to make mistakes.
It's how you figure out where the boundaries of the rules actually are.
And this idea led to a core philosophy for the writing: content first, form later. Just get your ideas, your evidence, your passion, all of it, down on the page. That's the content. Don't you dare worry about perfect grammar or spelling at this stage. Then, in a completely separate step, you go back and you fix all the mechanics. That's the form.
Guzman uses his brilliant analogy to explain it. Think about Stephen King. He's the one creating the story, the passion, the suspense. He's the one with the fame and the fortune. And then his manuscript goes to an editor, who Guzman playfully calls a professional nerd, and their job is just to clean up the grammar and syntax.
So the bottom line is this: content is king. You absolutely cannot fake passion, you can't fake a good idea. The grammar, the mechanics, that stuff can always be fixed later. But the core substance, that has to come from you.
And all of this brings us to the ultimate goal of his entire method. It's about moving way beyond just memorizing rules and recipes. It's about getting to something far, far more empowering.
Guzman says his real job is to resurrect the 3-year-old that's inside every single one of his students. You know the one, the kid who drove their parents absolutely nuts by constantly asking, why, but why? Society tends to beat that curiosity out of us, but he believes it's the true engine of all real learning.
And this reveals maybe the biggest takeaway of all. People who are truly smart, who are competent, and who are ethical, they are not afraid of questions. In fact, they welcome them. The people you really need to be wary of are the ones who get all defensive, the ones who try to shut down questions.
And it all comes down to this one final, powerful idea. Look, anyone can read a cookbook. That's passive knowledge. You're just following someone else's instructions step by step. But learning how to actually cook, that's an active, creative skill. It means you understand the principles, you can improvise, you can create something totally new. By teaching his students how to think critically, Guzman wasn't just handing them English phrases. He was teaching them how to cook with ideas. And that's a skill that empowers them to navigate not just a new language, but our entire complex world for the rest of their lives.